Once upon a time, in a small town filled with quiet streets and friendly neighbors, there was a young girl who loved music more than anything else. She had always been drawn to the piano. Even before she could read notes properly, she would press the keys at home and hum along with the melodies she imagined in her mind. Her parents noticed her fascination and decided to enroll her in piano lessons at the local music school. The school was known for being strict, with teachers who demanded perfection and students who worked hard to achieve it. But for her, music was never about perfection. It was about feelings, about telling stories without words, and expressing what she could not say out loud. From the very first lesson, she would spend hours at the piano, practicing and learning, but always with a spark in her eyes that made it clear she loved every moment. Other children in the class were eager to impress the teacher and win recognition, but she focused only on the joy of the music. She would sometimes stumble over the notes or make mistakes, but instead of feeling embarrassed, she would laugh and try again. This made her different from the other students who often became frustrated with themselves and sought constant approval from the teacher. Her music teacher was a tall, strict woman who had taught piano for many years. She believed in discipline and often used tough methods to push her students. She had a reputation for being able to spot talent instantly, but also for being harsh on those who did not meet her expectations. Many students feared her because she could be intimidating in the classroom, but her knowledge of music was unquestionable. She wanted her students to be perfect, to follow every note exactly, and to perform without error. In the classroom, the girl often kept to herself, quietly sitting at her bench and practicing while others chatted or joked. Her small frame and soft voice made her seem shy, and some of her classmates thought she was fragile or timid. They did not realize that behind her calm exterior was a determination that came from her love of music. She was not trying to compete with anyone else. She just wanted to play and explore melodies in her own way. She spent hours at home, listening to music, watching videos of famous pianists, and practicing the pieces assigned by the teacher. But she also experimented, creating little tunes of her own that made her feel proud and happy. The teacher, however, saw her differently. She noticed that while other students sometimes struggled to keep up with the lessons, this quiet girl seemed to have a natural understanding of rhythm and melody. But because the girl did not seek attention or ask for praise, the teacher began to doubt her abilities. The teacher wondered if the girl was really talented or if she simply had a lucky touch when practicing alone. She did not know that the girl had been working tirelessly, not for recognition, but for the love of the music itself. One day, the teacher decided that the girl needed a lesson in humility. She thought that if the girl could be embarrassed in front of the class, it might teach her to be more focused and to seek guidance more actively. The teacher began to plan a situation where the girl would have to play a challenging piece in front of everyone, a piece that was known to be difficult even for advanced students. She imagined the girl fumbling through the notes, her hands trembling, her confidence shaken. The idea made the teacher feel satisfied, thinking that she would teach the girl a necessary lesson. The girl, meanwhile, had no idea what the teacher was planning. She continued to practice diligently, enjoying every moment at the piano. Music was her escape from the worries of the world, her way of expressing emotions she could not put into words. She did not think about impressing anyone or proving her talent. She simply played, allowing her fingers to move over the keys as naturally as her thoughts flowed. Each note she pressed seemed to come from deep inside her, carrying feelings of joy, curiosity, and sometimes sadness. Her parents often watched her practice, amazed at how focused and passionate she was. They encouraged her gently, reminding her that her love for music was more important than what anyone else thought. As the day of the planned performance approached, the girl felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had been asked to prepare the piece by the teacher, but she did not understand why she was being singled out. The other students were also curious, whispering among themselves and wondering how the quiet girl would perform. Some thought she would struggle because they had seen her make small mistakes during practice sessions. Others were secretly rooting for her, knowing how hard she had worked at home. The classroom was filled with a quiet tension, an unspoken expectation that something unusual was about to happen. On the day of the performance, the girl walked into the classroom carrying her music sheets. She felt her heart beat faster as she approached the piano. Her small hands rested lightly on the keys, and she took a deep breath. The teacher stood nearby, her eyes fixed on the girl, expecting to see hesitation or nervous mistakes. The other students watched silently, some leaning forward in anticipation. The room was heavy with anticipation, as if everyone could sense that this moment would be different from a regular lesson. The girl began to play. At first, her fingers moved cautiously, touching each key with care. But soon, the notes began to flow more confidently. The melody she created filled the room, gentle at first, then growing richer and more expressive. The teacher's eyes widened slightly, and some of the students exchanged surprised glances. They had expected a performance filled with errors, but instead, the music was beautiful, resonant, and full of feeling. The girl's focus was absolute. She was not aware of anyone else in the room. All that mattered was the sound she was producing, the story she was telling through each note. As she continued, the music seemed to change the atmosphere. The whispers and small movements of the students faded into silence. Even the teacher, who had planned to show the girl's supposed weaknesses, found herself captivated by the performance. The melody carried emotions that words could not express. Joy, sadness, hope, and triumph all at once. It was as if the girl's love for music had taken over the room, creating a moment that was more powerful than anyone had expected. By the time the final note was played, the classroom was completely still. The girl sat there, her hands resting on the keys, unsure of what to expect next. The silence was different from before. It was not filled with judgment or ridicule, but with awe and admiration. The teacher, who had intended to embarrass her, found herself at a loss for words. The students stared, wide-eyed, realizing that they had witnessed something remarkable. In that moment, the girl's quiet dedication and love for music had transformed the classroom and captured everyone's attention, without her even trying to prove herself. This experience marked the beginning of a change. The girl realized that her music had the power to touch others, to tell stories, and to make people feel emotions they could not describe. She felt a growing confidence, not because she had performed perfectly, but because she had shared a part of herself that was genuine and beautiful. The teacher, too, began to see her differently, recognizing that talent and passion could not always be measured by strict rules or attempts to control someone's learning. From that day on, the girl continued to play with the same love and dedication, but now with a newfound confidence. She knew that her music could create moments of wonder and inspiration. And though she remained humble and quiet in her demeanor, everyone who heard her play could sense the depth of her talent and the sincerity of her heart. Her journey had only just begun, but the first step had already left a lasting impression on everyone in the classroom. The day after the lesson that had everyone talking, the music teacher could not stop thinking about the young girl's performance. She had intended to show the girl's supposed weaknesses, to create a moment where she would falter and feel embarrassed. But instead, the girl had played with such skill and emotion that it left everyone in awe. The teacher was a mixture of surprise and confusion. She had seen many students over the years, but she could not recall anyone who could command attention in that way without even trying to seek approval. Her mind kept replaying the girl's delicate hands moving across the keys, and the way the melody seemed to fill every corner of the room. It was not just technical skill. It was something deeper, something that came from within. In the following days, the teacher noticed the girl more closely. She observed how she interacted with her music and her classmates. The girl remained quiet, often lost in thought, yet there was a confidence in the way she approached her lessons now. She practiced with purpose, not because anyone demanded it, but because she loved it. Her determination had grown, and the teacher realized that the girl's talent was not simply a result of natural ability, but also of dedication and passion. It was a combination that could not be ignored or overlooked. Meanwhile, the other students began to talk quietly among themselves about what had happened. Some were curious, wanting to understand how someone so quiet could play with such feeling. Others were impressed, acknowledging silently that the girl had a gift they could not match. A few students who had teased her before felt a strange mix of regret and admiration. They realized that the girl had never been trying to show off or compete. She had simply shared her music honestly. This shift in perception changed the dynamic of the classroom. The quiet girl was no longer seen as fragile or timid. Instead, she became a figure of quiet strength, someone who could command attention without words. The teacher, though still strict, decided to approach her in a different way. She began assigning more challenging pieces to the girl, not to embarrass her, but to see how far her talent could go. She wanted to understand the depths of the girl's abilities and help her grow. She observed how the girl learned each piece, noting her methods and how she practiced. The girl was patient and meticulous, willing to spend hours on a single section until she understood it completely. Her focus was extraordinary, and the teacher started to respect her work ethic. She began to realize that her initial judgment had been unfair, and that sometimes the most impressive talent comes from those who quietly nurture it on their own. Outside of the classroom, the girl continued her practice at home. She would spend time each day at the piano, playing both assigned pieces and her own little creations. She loved experimenting with sounds, exploring new melodies, and creating small musical stories. Her parents supported her quietly, understanding that music was not just a hobby, but a way for her to express herself. They noticed how happy she became when she played, and how she seemed to grow in confidence after each session. Music was giving her a voice that words could not, and she treasured that gift deeply. One day, the teacher announced that there would be a small recital at the school. Each student was expected to perform a piece they had been practicing for the past few weeks. The girl felt a flutter of nerves. She had performed in the classroom before, but this time it would be in front of an audience that included other teachers and parents. She was excited but also anxious, not because she doubted her abilities, but because she wanted her music to convey the feelings she held inside. She wanted each note to tell a story, to capture attention without needing to speak. In the days leading up to the recital, the girl practiced more than ever. She would sit at the piano for hours, carefully perfecting each note while also making sure the music felt alive. She experimented with tempo, dynamics, and emotion, trying to ensure that every part of the piece carried meaning. Her parents watched silently, proud but careful not to put pressure on her. They knew that their encouragement and quiet support were more important than any applause or recognition she might receive. The girl felt a growing excitement and confidence as she realized that the recital was an opportunity not to impress others, but to share her love for music. Meanwhile, her classmates were busy with their own preparations. Some practiced diligently, while others seemed more concerned with what others would think of them. Many remembered the girl's earlier performance and wondered if she would once again astonish everyone. There was a mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and nervousness in the air. The classroom felt alive with energy as students prepared, but there was also a sense of quiet respect for the girl who had captured everyone's attention before. On the day of the recital, the school auditorium was filled with parents, teachers, and students. The girl took a deep breath as she stepped onto the stage, carrying her sheet music and a small, quiet confidence. She felt a mixture of nerves and excitement, but she focused on the music and the story she wanted to tell. As she sat at the piano and placed her fingers on the keys, she felt the familiar comfort of her music surrounding her. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself breathe and connect with the melody inside her. When she began to play, the audience was immediately drawn in. The notes flowed smoothly, filled with emotion and nuance. Each phrase was delicate yet powerful, capturing the listener's attention completely. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, but it was the feeling behind the music that truly captivated everyone. The teacher watched with a mixture of pride and amazement, realizing that she had underestimated the girl's ability to connect with her audience. The parents and students were equally enthralled, many leaning forward in their seats, captivated by the performance. As the piece progressed, the girl became more confident and expressive. The music rose and fell, carrying a story of determination, hope, and quiet strength. The audience could feel her emotions, sensing the passion and dedication she had poured into every note. There was not a single moment of hesitation or doubt. She was completely absorbed in her music. The recital hall seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the final note to arrive, fully aware that it would leave a lasting impression. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, followed by an eruption of applause. The girl sat back, her hands resting on the keys, overwhelmed by the reaction. The teacher smiled, finally understanding that true talent is not about control or perfection, but about honesty, passion, and the ability to touch others through art. The other students clapped and cheered, some with tears in their eyes, recognizing the extraordinary performance they had just witnessed. In that moment, the girl's music had transformed the room, leaving a memory that would not soon fade. After the recital, many people came up to praise her, but she remained humble and kind, thanking everyone quietly. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that she had shared something meaningful. The experience had strengthened her love for music and boosted her confidence, showing her that dedication and passion could overcome fear and doubt. The teacher, now seeing the girl in a new light, made a promise to herself to nurture this talent with care and encouragement, rather than fear or control. It was a turning point, not just for the girl, but for everyone who had witnessed her brilliance. Music had given her a voice, and she had used it to create a moment of wonder that would stay in the hearts of all who heard it. After the recital, life at the music school continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The young girl's performance had left a lasting impression on both the students and the teachers. Even in the hallways, people would quietly discuss how she had played with such depth and emotion. For her, however, life went on much the same as before. She continued to practice daily, focusing on learning and enjoying the music rather than seeking attention or praise. Her routine was simple but fulfilling, and she felt a sense of comfort in knowing that her love for music was something she could always rely on. The teacher, who had once intended to embarrass her, began to approach her lessons differently. She now recognized the girl's potential and wanted to help her grow without imposing fear or intimidation. The teacher carefully selected pieces that would challenge her, pieces that required precision, creativity, and emotional depth. The girl accepted the challenge willingly, eager to explore new melodies and improve her skills. She practiced diligently, often staying late after school to perfect difficult sections. Her dedication did not go unnoticed, and even her classmates began to respect her commitment and determination. In class, the girl's confidence began to show in small ways. She would sit taller at the piano, her hands steady, and her eyes focused. When she played, the music carried not only technical accuracy, but also a sense of storytelling that made listeners feel as if they were part of the journey. The teacher noticed the difference and occasionally allowed her to perform solo for special class exercises. These moments were not meant to impress others, but they gave her the chance to express herself freely and explore the nuances of each piece. She loved these opportunities and approached them with joy and seriousness alike. Outside the classroom, she also started to develop a new sense of awareness about her own abilities. She realized that her music could evoke emotions in others, and this understanding gave her confidence. At home, she would play for her family, watching their reactions and noticing how a simple melody could bring smiles, tears, or quiet contemplation. Music became more than just a personal joy. It became a way to connect with people and share her inner world. Her parents were amazed at her growth, not just as a musician, but as a young person learning to express herself and understand her own strengths. The teacher decided it was time for the girl to experience performing for a larger audience again. She arranged for her to play at a small community event at the local town hall. This event would include several other students, but the teacher suggested that the girl's piece be featured at the beginning to set the tone for the performance. The girl felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but she welcomed the chance to share her music with more people. She practiced the piece carefully, experimenting with tempo and dynamics, and imagining the audience listening and feeling each note. On the day of the event, the town hall was filled with parents, neighbors, and music lovers from the community. The girl felt the familiar flutter in her chest as she walked to the piano, her hands lightly brushing the keys. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this performance was not about impressing anyone, but about sharing a story through music. As she began to play, the room became quiet. Her fingers danced across the keys, producing a melody that was at once delicate and powerful. Every note was clear, every phrase intentional, and the emotion behind the music was undeniable. The audience was captivated. They leaned forward in their seats, listening intently as if the music had a life of its own. People who had never heard her play before were surprised by the depth of feeling in each note. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others watched her hands move with awe. The girl's performance was not perfect in the sense of rigid technical accuracy, but it was perfect in its honesty and emotional impact. She played with a sincerity that could not be taught, a natural ability to connect with her listeners through sound. After the piece ended, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, the room erupted in applause. The girl sat quietly, her hands resting on the keys, feeling a mixture of relief and happiness. She had shared her music as she intended, and the audience had responded with genuine appreciation. The teacher, standing nearby, smiled with pride. She had seen many students over the years, but the girl's ability to convey emotion through music in such a natural way was extraordinary. Even other students watching were inspired, realizing that talent and dedication, combined with genuine feeling, could create something truly special. Following the performance, the girl received compliments and encouragement from many people in the audience. Some praised her technical skill, others the emotion she conveyed, but all recognized the beauty of her playing. She responded humbly, thanking them quietly and continuing to focus on the music itself rather than the attention she received. This humility made her performance even more impactful, as it showed that her motivation was not to gain approval, but to share a piece of herself with the world. Back in the classroom, the teacher noticed changes in her other students as well. Inspired by the young girl's dedication and emotional expression, they began to approach their own practice differently. Some became more patient with themselves, others more attentive to the feeling behind each note rather than just the technical aspects. The girl's influence was subtle but powerful, creating a ripple effect that improved the entire learning environment. Music was no longer just a subject to be studied. It became a means of expression, connection, and personal growth for everyone in the room. As the days passed, the girl continued to explore new pieces and experiment with her own compositions. She found joy in the process of creating music, in discovering new sounds, and in telling stories through her playing. Each lesson, each practice session, became an opportunity to grow and learn. The teacher, once critical and controlling, had now become a guide and mentor, helping the girl to refine her skills while encouraging her individuality. Their relationship had transformed from one of skepticism to mutual respect and understanding. One evening, after a particularly long practice session, the girl sat quietly at the piano, reflecting on how far she had come. She remembered the first day she had played in front of the class, the fear she had felt, and the unexpected outcome. That memory reminded her that challenges, even when daunting, could reveal hidden strengths. It also reminded her of the power of perseverance, passion, and staying true to oneself. Music had taught her many lessons, not only about notes and melodies, but about courage, patience, and the ability to touch others with something deeply personal. Her parents, noticing her growth, gently encouraged her to continue sharing her music with others. They suggested small performances at local gatherings and family events, knowing that these opportunities would help her gain confidence and experience. The girl agreed, understanding that every performance was a chance to connect with people and share a part of herself. Each time she played, she felt the joy of creating something meaningful, the satisfaction of expressing emotions without words, and the quiet pride that came from knowing she had worked hard and followed her passion. As the school year progressed, the girl continued to shine in her music lessons, inspiring those around her and earning the respect of both her peers and teachers. Her journey was not about winning competitions or receiving praise. It was about the love of music, the joy of creating, and the ability to touch the hearts of others. She had discovered that true talent is not measured by fear or humiliation, but by the willingness to work hard, remain dedicated, and express oneself authentically. In every note she played, she shared a story, a feeling, and a piece of her soul that could not be ignored or forgotten. As the weeks went by, the girl's love for music grew stronger every day. She would spend hours at the piano, experimenting with new melodies and refining her technique. Every note she played felt alive, and she began to understand the power her music had to move people. She noticed that when she played, even in the quietest of moments, people would stop and listen. Their expressions would change, their eyes would brighten, and sometimes tears would appear in the corners of their eyes. This realization filled her with a sense of purpose. Music was no longer just a hobby. It had become a way for her to connect with others in ways words could never achieve. Her teacher, who had once intended to embarrass her, had become her biggest supporter. She observed the girl with admiration, noticing how naturally she expressed emotions through her playing. The teacher began to give her opportunities to perform more frequently, both in class and at small school events. These experiences were meant not to test her, but to encourage her growth and allow her to explore her abilities further. The girl accepted these opportunities with quiet confidence, always approaching each performance with care and dedication. She was not performing to prove herself to anyone. She was performing to share a piece of her heart through music. One afternoon, the teacher asked her to try a new piece, one that was challenging and unfamiliar. The girl looked at the sheet music, feeling a mixture of excitement and curiosity. She had never played anything like it before, and the complexity of the notes made her pulse quicken. But she did not hesitate. She carefully studied each measure, listening to the rhythms in her mind before placing her fingers on the keys. As she began to play, the piece started off cautiously, her fingers exploring the unfamiliar keys. Then, gradually, the music began to flow naturally. Her fingers moved with ease, expressing the emotion hidden within the notes, and the piece came alive under her touch. The teacher watched in awe. She had expected the girl to struggle, perhaps to falter or lose confidence. But instead, she was witnessing a performance filled with grace and understanding. The young girl's ability to interpret the music with such depth reminded the teacher that true talent is not measured by fear or discipline alone, but by the heart and dedication of the musician. The other students in the classroom were equally captivated, watching silently as the girl's hands moved over the keys, producing a melody that seemed to tell a story of its own. After the performance, the teacher spoke to her privately. She complimented the girl not only on her technical skill but also on the feeling she put into the music. She explained that the true power of music was not just in playing the notes correctly, but in making the listeners feel something profound. The girl listened carefully, appreciating the advice and encouragement. She understood that her music could inspire, soothe, and even heal, and this realization filled her with a sense of responsibility and excitement. She wanted to continue learning and growing, not for recognition, but to share the beauty of music with as many people as she could. As the school year continued, the girl's reputation as a talented pianist grew quietly but steadily. Parents and students alike began to recognize her gift. Invitations to play at small community events started arriving, and the teacher carefully guided her through each opportunity. She prepared diligently for each performance, practicing long hours and refining every detail. But no matter how much attention she received, she remained humble, always focused on the music itself rather than the applause. She understood that true fulfillment came from expressing herself and connecting with others through the piano, not from praise or recognition. One day, the teacher announced a special school event, a concert where selected students would perform for a larger audience, including local music enthusiasts and invited guests from nearby schools. The girl was chosen to play one of the opening pieces, a role that would set the tone for the entire event. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The stage would be larger, the audience bigger, and the expectations higher. But she welcomed the challenge, seeing it as an opportunity to grow and share her music with more people. In the days leading up to the concert, the girl practiced relentlessly. She focused on every aspect of the piece: timing, expression, dynamics, and emotional connection. She experimented with subtle variations in tempo, trying to convey the feelings hidden within the notes. Her parents supported her quietly, ensuring she had a comfortable space to practice and giving gentle encouragement when needed. The girl felt a growing confidence, knowing that her preparation and dedication were helping her improve not only technically but emotionally as well. Music had become a journey for her, one that she embraced wholeheartedly. On the day of the concert, the auditorium was filled with anticipation. The audience included parents, teachers, students, and music enthusiasts, all eager to hear the performances. The girl waited backstage, listening to the other students play and feeling a flutter of nerves in her chest. She reminded herself to focus on the music, to let her fingers and heart guide her. As her turn approached, she took a deep breath and walked confidently onto the stage. The bright lights did not intimidate her. Instead, they felt like a spotlight on the story she was about to tell through her music. She sat at the piano, her hands resting gently on the keys. For a moment, she closed her eyes, centering herself and feeling the melody in her mind. Then she began to play. The notes flowed naturally, gentle at first, building gradually into a rich, expressive sound that filled the auditorium. Every phrase conveyed emotion, telling a story of hope, determination, and quiet strength. The audience was immediately drawn in. People leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the music, while some closed their eyes, letting the melody wash over them. The girl played not for recognition, but for connection, allowing her emotions and experiences to shape the performance. As she continued, the music grew more powerful, resonating throughout the room. The audience was silent, completely absorbed by the performance. The teacher watched with pride, recognizing how far the girl had come and how naturally she conveyed emotion through her playing. The other students, too, were inspired, realizing that true musical expression was about more than just technique. It was about sharing a piece of oneself with the listeners. The girl's performance became a moment of quiet magic, leaving everyone in awe of the depth and beauty of her music. When the final note echoed through the auditorium, there was a brief pause, as if the audience collectively held its breath, savoring the last moments of the melody. Then, applause erupted, filling the room with appreciation and admiration. The girl sat quietly, her hands resting on the keys, feeling a mix of relief and happiness. She had shared her story through music, and the response was genuine and heartfelt. The teacher smiled, knowing that she had witnessed a rare and extraordinary talent. A young musician whose dedication, passion, and emotional depth could inspire anyone who heard her play. After the concert, the girl received compliments and encouragement from many attendees. She responded humbly, thanking them quietly and focusing on the joy of sharing her music rather than the attention she received. This humility made her performances even more impactful, showing that her motivation came from love for the art, not the desire for recognition. The experience reinforced her understanding of the power of music, to touch hearts, evoke emotions, and create connections that words alone could not achieve. In the following weeks, the girl continued her lessons and practice with renewed energy and purpose. She explored new pieces, experimented with her own compositions, and continued to refine her technique and emotional expression. Her influence on her classmates remained subtle but powerful, encouraging them to approach music with sincerity, patience, and dedication. She had become not only a talented pianist but also a source of inspiration for those around her, showing that passion, perseverance, and authenticity could create extraordinary results. Through all these experiences, the girl grew not just as a musician, but as a person. She learned to face challenges with courage, to embrace opportunities with humility, and to express herself honestly through her art. Music had taught her lessons that extended far beyond the piano, shaping her character, her confidence, and her understanding of the world. Every note she played became a reflection of her journey, her emotions, and her desire to connect with others. She had discovered that true brilliance comes not from perfection or recognition, but from the heart, dedication, and the courage to share one's gift with the world. The young girl's journey with music continued to evolve, and with each passing day, her understanding of her own abilities deepened. She spent countless hours at the piano, exploring new melodies, refining old ones, and experimenting with different emotions in her music. Each practice session became more than just preparation for lessons or performances. It became a space where she could reflect on her feelings and express them freely. Music had become a language she could speak fluently, a language that connected her to the people around her in ways words never could. Her teacher continued to play an important role in this journey, offering guidance, encouragement, and gentle challenges that helped the girl grow. The teacher recognized the importance of nurturing not just technical skill, but also emotional expression. She carefully selected pieces that would push the girl's abilities while allowing her to interpret the music in her own way. These pieces required precision and dedication, but they also demanded sensitivity, creativity, and an understanding of the story behind the music. The girl embraced each challenge, seeing it as an opportunity to deepen her connection with the piano and with herself. At school, the girl had become a quiet but inspiring presence. Her classmates, once unsure of her, now looked to her as an example of what dedication and passion could achieve. They observed how she approached her music, how she practiced with patience, and how she performed with sincerity. Some began to mirror her focus, taking their own practice more seriously, while others learned to appreciate the feeling behind the music rather than just the notes themselves. The girl's influence was subtle but profound, changing the atmosphere of the classroom and encouraging her peers to find their own voice in music. One day, the teacher decided it was time for the girl to participate in a larger regional music competition. The event would include students from many schools, and the audience would consist of parents, teachers, and music experts. The girl felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was the biggest stage she had faced so far, but she also saw it as an opportunity to share her love for music with more people. She practiced tirelessly in the weeks leading up to the competition, refining every detail and exploring the emotional depth of her piece. She imagined the audience listening, feeling each note, and connecting with the story she wanted to tell. The day of the competition arrived, and the venue was bustling with energy. Students from various schools filled the stage and the seating area, each preparing for their performances. The girl waited quietly backstage, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves in her chest. She reminded herself that her goal was not to win or to impress, but to play honestly and express the music as she felt it. She took a deep breath and focused on the melody in her mind, letting it guide her fingers as she stepped onto the stage. As she sat at the piano, the bright lights did not intimidate her. Instead, they seemed to illuminate the story she was about to tell through her music. She placed her hands on the keys, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and let the first notes flow. The melody began softly, almost like a whisper, gradually growing in confidence and emotion. The audience was captivated immediately, drawn into the music and the story it conveyed. Every note was precise, every phrase deliberate, yet full of feeling. The girl was not playing for recognition. She was playing to share a piece of herself with everyone listening. The performance grew in intensity and complexity, the music weaving a tale of determination, hope, and resilience. The audience was silent, completely absorbed in the sounds she produced. Some closed their eyes to focus on the music, while others watched her hands move with fascination. The girl's fingers danced across the keys with grace and precision, but it was the emotion behind the notes that left the deepest impression. The judges, who had seen many skilled performers, were equally mesmerized, recognizing the unique combination of technical mastery and heartfelt expression. As the final notes echoed through the hall, there was a brief pause before the audience erupted into applause. The girl remained seated for a moment, her hands resting gently on the keys, feeling a mix of relief, joy, and quiet pride. She had shared her music honestly and fully, and the audience had responded with genuine appreciation. The teacher, standing at the side, smiled with pride, realizing that the girl's talent went far beyond technical skill. It was her ability to convey emotion, to tell a story through music, that made her truly remarkable. The other students looked on in awe, inspired by her courage and dedication. After the performance, many people came to praise her. They complimented her technical skill, her interpretation, and the emotional impact of her music. She accepted their words with humility, thanking them quietly and returning her focus to the joy of playing rather than the recognition she received. This humility made her achievements even more remarkable, showing that her love for music was pure and genuine, untainted by a desire for fame or applause. The experience at the competition had a profound effect on the girl. She realized that her music could touch hearts, inspire others, and convey emotions that words alone could not express. She felt a sense of purpose, understanding that her talent was not just for herself, but for the people who would listen and be moved by it. This realization motivated her to continue growing as a musician, exploring new pieces, and developing her own compositions. She began to experiment with blending different styles and creating melodies that reflected her experiences, emotions, and observations of the world around her. Back at school, her success in the competition inspired her classmates and changed the way they viewed their own abilities. Some students who had struggled with confidence in their music lessons began to approach practice with renewed determination. Others learned to appreciate the emotional depth of music rather than just focusing on playing notes correctly. The girl's journey became an example of what dedication, passion, and authenticity could achieve. She did not boast or seek attention, but her actions spoke louder than words, encouraging everyone around her to pursue their own passions with sincerity and commitment. Over time, the girl's reputation as a talented pianist continued to grow quietly but steadily. Invitations to perform at community events, school functions, and small recitals began to arrive. Each performance was an opportunity for her to share her music and connect with people. She approached every opportunity with the same focus and humility, understanding that each note she played carried a message and a piece of her heart. Her parents, proud of her achievements, supported her quietly, knowing that her happiness and fulfillment came from the music itself rather than recognition or accolades. As she continued her journey, the girl also learned important lessons about resilience and perseverance. She encountered pieces that were challenging, performances that were nerve-wracking, and moments of self-doubt. Yet, she never let these obstacles discourage her. Instead, she used them as opportunities to grow, to improve, and to deepen her understanding of music. Each challenge strengthened her confidence, her skill, and her ability to express herself through the piano. She realized that true mastery of music was not about avoiding mistakes, but about embracing them, learning from them, and continuing to play with passion and sincerity. Through all these experiences, the girl's character developed alongside her musical abilities. She became patient, compassionate, and self-aware. She understood the importance of dedication, the value of expressing oneself honestly, and the impact of connecting with others through art. Music had taught her lessons that extended far beyond the piano, shaping her perspective on life, relationships, and personal growth. Every note she played became a reflection of her journey, her emotions, and her commitment to sharing her gift with the world. In this way, the young girl's story became more than just a tale of talent. It was a story of perseverance, humility, and the power of passion. Her journey inspired those around her, reminding them that dedication, sincerity, and love for what one does can create extraordinary results. She had discovered that true brilliance is not measured by recognition or accolades, but by the courage to express oneself fully and the willingness to share one's talents with others. Her music had become a voice, a way to connect, inspire, and bring joy to everyone who listened. As time went on, the young girl's connection with music became even stronger. She continued to explore new pieces, experiment with different styles, and refine her techniques. Every day at the piano felt like a journey, a way to discover something new about herself and the world around her. She had grown in skill, confidence, and emotional expression, and with each performance, she learned more about the power of music to touch the hearts of others. Her teacher, who had once hoped to embarrass her, now stood proudly as a guide and mentor. The teacher provided encouragement and opportunities, helping the girl navigate more challenging compositions and larger performances. She understood that the girl's gift was extraordinary, not just for her technical ability, but for the emotion and sincerity she conveyed through her playing. The bond between teacher and student had transformed into one of trust and mutual respect. The teacher no longer saw the girl as timid or fragile. Instead, she recognized her as a strong, passionate musician who could inspire everyone who listened. The girl's performances continued to gain recognition, and she was invited to play at community events, school concerts, and small recitals. Each performance was unique, a personal story told through her music. She approached every opportunity with care, focusing on sharing her emotions rather than impressing others. Her dedication and humility became a source of inspiration for those around her. Students in her classes began to emulate her approach, practicing more diligently and learning to play with feeling rather than just technical precision. The girl's influence had quietly transformed her environment, creating a culture of sincerity, focus, and appreciation for the beauty of music. One day, the school announced a special annual recital, an event that would include the most talented students from every grade. The girl was invited to play one of the closing pieces, a role of honor and significance. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, knowing that many people would be watching. But she reminded herself that the performance was not about winning or impressing. It was about sharing the music she loved and expressing the feelings that could not be spoken in words. She practiced tirelessly, perfecting each note and phrase, while also exploring the emotional depth of the composition. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, but it was the story behind the music that made her playing so compelling. On the day of the recital, the auditorium was filled with parents, teachers, and students. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as the performers took their places. When it was her turn, the girl walked confidently onto the stage. The bright lights did not intimidate her. Instead, they seemed to shine on the story she was about to tell through her music. She sat at the piano, her hands hovering over the keys, and took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, centering herself, and let the melody flow. The first notes were soft and tentative, but gradually they grew stronger and more confident. The music filled the auditorium, drawing the audience into a story of hope, courage, and quiet strength. Every phrase carried emotion. Every note was deliberate, yet full of feeling. The audience was captivated, some leaning forward in their seats, others closing their eyes to fully immerse themselves in the music. The girl's performance was not about technical perfection alone. It was about honesty, passion, and connection. Her fingers danced across the keys with skill and grace, but it was the heart behind the music that left the deepest impression. As the piece continued, the music seemed to take on a life of its own. The audience was silent, completely absorbed, feeling the emotions she conveyed with each note. The teacher watched from the side with pride, realizing that the girl's talent went beyond mere skill. It was her ability to share her heart and her story through music that made her extraordinary. Even other students were inspired, understanding that music was not just about playing notes correctly, but about connecting with others in a meaningful way. The performance became a moment of magic, a shared experience that would stay with everyone who witnessed it. When the final note echoed through the auditorium, there was a brief moment of silence before the audience erupted into applause. The girl remained seated for a moment, her hands resting gently on the keys, feeling a mix of relief, joy, and quiet pride. She had shared her music honestly, and the response was heartfelt and genuine. The teacher smiled, knowing that she had witnessed a rare and extraordinary talent. The other students clapped and cheered, inspired by the courage, dedication, and authenticity of the performance. After the recital, the girl received congratulations and kind words from teachers, parents, and peers. She accepted their praise with humility, thanking them quietly and focusing on the joy of sharing her music rather than the attention she received. Each performance reinforced her understanding of the power of music, to inspire, to heal, and to connect people in ways words alone could not. She realized that her journey was not just about learning notes and techniques, but about expressing herself fully and helping others feel the emotions she experienced through her playing. In the weeks that followed, the girl continued to grow as a musician and as a person. She explored new pieces, experimented with her own compositions, and shared her music with anyone willing to listen. Her confidence and self-awareness blossomed, and she learned to embrace both successes and challenges with grace. Each obstacle became an opportunity to improve, each audience an opportunity to connect, and each performance a chance to share a piece of her heart. Her story became an inspiration for her peers, teachers, and community. People admired not only her talent, but also her humility, dedication, and love for music. She had shown that true brilliance comes from within, from passion, sincerity, and a willingness to share one's gifts with the world. Her journey was a reminder that talent alone is not enough. It is the courage to express oneself, the dedication to grow, and the heart to connect that truly makes someone remarkable. As she looked back on her journey, from the timid student in the classroom to the young pianist who could captivate an audience, the girl felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Music had given her a voice, a way to express herself, and a path to connect with others. She knew that her journey was only beginning, and that there were countless melodies to explore, emotions to convey, and stories to share. Each note she played was a reflection of her growth, her experiences, and her desire to touch the hearts of those who listened. In the end, the girl's story was not just about talent or recognition. It was about passion, perseverance, humility, and the transformative power of music. She had learned that true success comes from sharing one's gifts honestly, embracing challenges, and remaining dedicated to what one loves. Through her music, she had inspired others, created moments of wonder, and discovered the joy of expressing herself fully. Her journey was a testament to the beauty of following one's heart and the magic that can happen when talent, dedication, and love for what you do come together.